Welcome to the first quarantine Bridging the Gap podcast. We kind of set it up the best so that we're vestigially having Dan here. Got the same painting in the background. So Dan is to my left. Are you to my, no, you'd be on the right for me, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Left. Okay, yeah. Well, hey,
Close enough.
Welcome to how intimacy will be in 2020. So it was like Barbara Walters. This is intimacy in 2020. So fill me in. Tell me what's happening. You're in the mental health field, and on top of being in the mental health field, you're in the health field that needs a lot of mental health right now.
Yeah, it's true. I think one of the tough things right now is that there's still the group of people that we talked about in our last couple of podcasts who are acting like this is the apocalypse and the end of the world, and are buying up everything that hospitals need, everything that other people need, and taking it all for themselves, which is not helping anyone. Yeah. I see them in the grocery store all the time with full gowns, masks, hood on, gloves. And then there were even images of parking lots of grocery stores just littered on the ground with tons of gloves. People just taking off their gloves and just dropping them on the ground. And then we have
America.
And then the other side are the 20-something-year-olds who are cramming themselves into bars and sharing beer bottles and doing stuff you shouldn't do normally. Never mind with COVID or flu season, stuff you shouldn't do regularly, which is necessitating all of these social distancing mandates.
So to me, this is the real interesting thing that goes back to a bit of the language conversation we've been having throughout every podcast, really, is that the divisiveness has created such an extreme and hyperbolic reaction on every single thing we do that in the middle of a pandemic, we have two incredibly distinct possibilities. You have the fatalistic side, which is like, screw it, I'm just gonna party. And you have the other part of it, which is, not only am I going to buy everything out from under everyone else, but I'm going to buy PPE equipment to the point that I really look like, what was it, Doc Brown from Back to the Future, like a full hazmat suit, running into the grocery store, throwing toilet paper into as many wagons as you can, and then like running out the door. And one of the problems that I have is, and we talked a little bit about this offline, so we can't have conversations anymore. We've dumbed down every word at this point to mean not what it means. We've created every law that had a spirit to the law, and basically, I think the statement I said yesterday that you liked was, the spirit of the law sufficed until the lawyers got a hold of it. And now we basically can't have a conversation, and we can't have laws because we literally relitigate what everything means.
And then we hyper-focus on what one word in one sentence of this giant law or ruling or statute means, and maybe that does this, and maybe that flips the whole thing over, and here's a technicality. And the media was even setting it up like this, saying we can either overreact or underreact, right? We talked about that in our last podcast. Those are the two options. Yeah. And then everyone, or not everyone, but a lot of people capitulated and said, okay, I'll be in the overreact camp. Okay, I'll be in the underreact camp. And then all of those people flood the hospitals, and now we have a bigger crisis, instead of if we just all had a somewhat intelligent, middle-of-the-road reaction to this.
So this is one of the conversations that we've also had about parenting styles at this point, is that parenting styles, I think, in this day and age, one of the first State of Kids that we had, I was discussing the fact that people presume that this is the least safe time, that's the wife, drive-by wifing, that this is one of the safest times in the world by data. But because of the perception of social media and media et al., it seems like the least safe time to raise a kid. So now it's, you know, it's, I'm a victim of it too. So I'll take some ownership on this. I teach martial arts, and I teach martial arts because the world can be unsafe. My statement about martial arts is that it's not about the odds, it's about the stakes when it comes to physical self-defense. But when it comes to daily self-defense, it not only is the stakes, it is the odds, because the odds are we are always in conflict. So for my particular specific industry, I feel like I'm being consistent in the fact that we're in constant states of conflict, which is how should I react to COVID? And then we're in rarely physical states of conflict, which is what if somebody tries to rob my cart of food while I'm going out to my car during the COVID pandemic at the local Stop and Shop? But the problem is everywhere else, it's just the stakes. They're never talking about the odds. It's always the stakes. It's like, but what if my kid is out alone for 10 more minutes than I intended to and a meteor hits them? I can't be that parent that had the first kid die of a meteor shower. And it's like, oh, then just put your kid in a bubble and just
Yeah.
in the basement. And they might as well be under quarantine for the rest of their lives.
And then you have the people on the other side of the spectrum who underreact, and they're like, oh, the media is just scaring everyone. My kid's probably fine. And they don't pay attention to anything they do or parent them. And we're back into the parental version of you can either underreact or overreact.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
either overparent or underparent.
Yeah.
Instead of just, you're still a parent. You still have responsibilities to your child. You still have to raise your child. And they're going to be okay. It's not the end of the world. It's not less safe than it used to be back in your day. And you can let them have a little bit of rope so that they can learn things for themselves.
Yes.
But and it seems like we're continuing to erode the middle of the road for everything, for politics, for parenting, for reaction to a pandemic, for everything. We're eroding that middle of the road, which is the most important, and polarizing people.
Well, every culture had its middle of the road philosophy, and it doesn't matter whether it's, an actual philosophy or a religion. And, a lot of these middle of the roads were kind of caught between the guidelines of this is too much and this is too little. And going back to what I was saying before is we can't have these conversations because it's, well, if you're wearing red and I'm wearing blue, then anything you say, I can't listen to you. Oh, I like that. I like that little rhyme.
Yeah, you rhyme.
Sometimes I'm just like Busta Rhymes. So I just can't help it. So, and once you get into those spaces, people just start to self-select and quarantine to their own echo chambers. Then one of the things I'm trying to do, whether it be the state of the kids in the dojo or in these conversations with you, is let's show people the middle ground by having a dialogue that is unpopular. And the current dialogue now is, kind of what do you do about COVID as the individual, as well as a family, as well as a community, as well as a nation. And unfortunately, I would say there's not enough data to really come up with a single correct answer. And if you talk to people on the, panic side, you can't pull them off the ledge because they're recognizing that, well, if I panic hard enough, then I'll protect myself from everything. And you can't talk to the people who are just running into the bars because, and admittedly, this is one of the conversations we had before, admittedly, the younger generation has already been set up to be nihilistic, therefore fatalistic, because we've taught them there's no meaning in anything. Every time you turn around, a word that was once meaning one thing, it now means something either at a higher or lower bar. And if you give a participation trophy, I know it's an old canard at this point, but it begs repeating in this particular example is, if you give everyone a participation trophy, they're not buying it either. They eventually recognize that I don't even know what I'm worth anymore. So I just assume that I'm just as worthless or useful as the next person. So if we're all the same, then what's the point of me being here? I'm no different than anything else. I'm as replaceable as a wheel on a car.
And I feel like a couple generations ago, maybe 2 generations ago, at least in the US, the culture was if your elder says something, it's the truth. You are not
Yes.
allowed to question it. They're always right. And then we went through like a middle period where it was like actually adults and elders can be wrong, but you still have to respect them. However, you can question it. Things are up for debate. And
Yes.
now we've seemed to have transitioned to literally everything is up for debate all the time, whatever you think is valid and right. And if people disagree with you, then they're wrong
Yeah.
immediately. And it's like, well, that's as big a problem as we had before. Yeah,
Exactly.
grown-ups aren't always right, but you're not always right either.
Yes.
And the pendulum, as usual, has swung too far in that direction. So the government says, hey, we're trying to level this curve out. Let's just be smart. Try to stay home. Try to stay out of really large groups. Let's just be intelligent about this. And they go, oh, really? Well, then we're going to pack ourselves into a small building and lick each other.
Challenge accepted.
Exactly. And it's like, come on, what, really?
This is why
Everything
we
doesn't
can't
have to
have
be up
nice
for
things,
debate.
damn it.
Exactly. And if,
This is
again,
why
we could find the middle.
yeah. Well, it's just not exciting to have a middle.
It's
Maybe,
not.
maybe this podcast is going to be a complete and epic failure because we're arguing for the middle. And as we
The least
kind of,
popular argument for sure.
yeah, the least popular argument or the least popular candidate is somebody saying, hey, look, there's problems to the left of us, problems to the right. I'm stuck in the middle with you. So I'm
Yeah.
going to try and do the best I can to try and pull ourselves to the middle because that's where the most average success is. Everyone looks at the star and doesn't recognize that the star player or the star of any type of situation not only has the most amount of pressure, but has to have the most amount of failure because you have to put yourself out there that much. So when I was younger and I played lacrosse, for example, I never shot. I was an attack, which is basically a forward. I'm supposed to score goals. I never did. I think I probably shot 6 times and scored maybe 3 goals in 6 years. But there's twofold for that reason. One, I was not as confident as my other friends of making the goal. Two, because I saw that my friends were confident about making the goal, I would always dump the pass to them because they had a higher percentage rate of scoring. But only as I got older did I recognize, well, the reason why they had a better chance of scoring is because they tried to score over and over again. And I probably had a 50% percentage scoring rate out of my whole 6 shots that I shot in 6 years, and I got 3 goals. They probably had a 25 or 30% scoring rate, if that, because they just shot constantly, and no one sat down and explained that to me and said, hey, Darren, you could have the confidence of making more goals if you just took those opportunities rather than dumping it, but shooting. But it worked for our team because I just had a different role to play and it worked. But it is one of those funny things that I didn't get that through my head until self-reflection 10, 15, 20 years after I graduated high school. So, and because of that, the people at the top, the people who are pushing the hardest, are going to be more susceptible to those bouts of depression because, gosh forbid, that stardom gets usurped from them for the next star. That's really, really hard to cope with. But that's what we're all having people strive for, is my long-winded circle.
Definitely. And both sides of that push people towards being more susceptible for mental illness. Because if your mentality is, like you said perfectly, if I panic hard enough in any given situation, then I'm more prepared and I'm more likely to get hurt, less likely to get hurt by it.
Yes.
So that means you're in a constant state of panic all the time. Anxiety, panic attack, depression, you're going to put yourself at greater risk for all those. And if you're thinking everything's up for debate, nothing's real, everything I think is right and everything everyone else thinks is wrong, and I'm just going to do the opposite of what everyone tells me to do, well, then socially you're going to have a tough time.
Yeah.
You're going to feel like the world is unfair because you have no control over it, because why won't everyone just agree with you? And again, you're more susceptible for depression because you're never growing. You're never questioning yourself and changing and moving forward. So either way, we're on that side of the spectrum. We're setting kids up, we're setting teenagers up to have more mental health issues because we're not making them adaptable. When you're in the middle, you're adaptable. You can shift a little left, you can shift a little right, you can readjust what you think. I don't know everything, but I do know a lot. So this person might know more about this particular thing that I do, but I am still worthwhile. And I don't need to panic, but I do need to be prepared. Those things make you movable, and they give you some kind of locus of control. And then you have some more skills built up to defend against really getting sucked down by mental illness that can be debilitating.
Are you saying that having a good internal locus of control allows you to choose whether to move slightly to the left or right?
It would seem like that.
Rather than you just being shoved by the waves of pandemic one way or the other way. So it's interesting that you bring that balance up, because as I was putting my ad together before we got online, every Monday I post an ad to the local towns that I'm allowed to post an ad on Monday. And I was running through with the Grammar Nazi, AKA my wife, and I read a piece of it, and I'm going to have you kind of look over it, because I kind of teased her when she kind of looked at me quizzically. I said, what? I'm like, just ruin my business? Is that what you're saying? Like, how dare you say that? So I said, whether you're 4 or 104, having a daily routine that is balanced between stimulating your mind and invigorating your body is the best way to keep your immune system healthy. So she says, well, is it about stimulating your mind? I said, well, as far as I know, one of the Stoic philosophers were always talking about having a busy mind so that you are moving towards something and keeping your mindset on something, and like you said, learning and exposing yourself to different things, because if you don't, you start to become mentally stagnant and you'll start to withdraw and you'll end up being depressed yourself. I think it's the SEER school, which is search, evade, rescue, escape, or something like that. I can't remember what I should probably look it up. But they teach you that if you're either running from the enemy or a POW, that you need to have these mental and physical daily routines, because the only thing your captors can't take away from you is your mind. So even if you're injured, you should try and do some type of physical training or mental training every day. So I figured I'd bring it up to you because it was kind of an interesting thing. She kind of looked at me like really? Like, yeah, I hope so. I'm not posting as a doctor, but you need to have a good mind and body balance is the short version of it. And I'll share with you a funny part of it next, but I wanted to hear what you had to say about that.
And I think that correlation, it can be very linear, because if the more information you have, the more you question yourself and question other things, and then accept information that makes sense from other people and gain as much information, skills as possible, the more you're going to feel like you have control over your environment.
Yeah.
Versus your environment controlling you. And the more you feel like you're at the mercy of your environment, that's going to cause stress. Whichever direction you feel like you're at the mercy of your environment, it causes stress. Stress releases cortisol into your system. Stress is physically unhealthy. It hurts muscles. It hurts your immune system. It literally dampens down your immune system's effectiveness. So it has a direct harm on your physical body. And then those kind of direct harms, being in constant discomfort, being in constant pain, getting sick more often, causes stress. And now you end up in a vicious cycle where your stress is causing you to be in more discomfort, and your discomfort is causing more stress. Versus feeling like you have information, knowledge, and adaptability, therefore some control in your environment, therefore less stress. I mean, that's what I would think.
Yeah, and
based on what I know.
Yes. So one correction, and my third grade survival school readings was a little antiquated. My brain didn't quite recover all the words first year. It's survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. I got the gist of it, but it was not
Yeah.
great. So I'm going to share with you what I wrote, because I thought it was kind of a funny, throwback to people our age. So I said, having time to focus on you during times of close quarters will also keep you emotionally balanced, which is kind of what you were just saying, correct? So as the esteemed lawyer L. Woods would say, exercise gives you endorphins. Endorphins make you happy. Happy people just don't kill people. So I adjusted that quote from Legally Blonde just a little bit, because it was
That is
very
funny.
specific about the woman killing her husband in the movie.
Yeah.
But I added that in there because I just thought it was just too funny. It just led too easily not to have that quote in there.
And feeling like you're bettering yourself, getting more information, like you're exercising, working out, like you're doing something during this time, makes it not feel useless. It could
Yes.
feel like a fresh start. You could see a positive aspect to all of this, to amidst all the negativity. And again, it adds some reality back into it, that once again, everything doesn't have to be one way or the other. Everything isn't positive or negative. It can have aspects of both in it. Everything doesn't have to be, well, I can't do anything, therefore I'm going to gain weight because I can't go anywhere. Well, what exercises can you do in your home? Have you been exercising? Can you use this as a fresh start because you're almost forced to? It allows you to pull some positivity out of a negative situation.
And actually have control of your life.
Exactly. And we're back to locus of control.
Yeah.
Which
So
is why I loved last time in our last podcast, your example of the surfer. It's perfect.
Yeah.
The surfer looks beautiful gliding on top of the water, but that's because you can't see all the micro adjustments that they're making, constantly adjusting to what's going on around them, being in control of themselves and the board, making it look effortless.
Yeah. No, one of the things that I think I should challenge everyone, including myself, is, the old joke about your freshman 15 for people who gain weight when they first go to college.
Yeah.
Is there's been a joke about the COVID-19 that people want to gain 19 pounds during this.
Yeah.
Is that I think that there's a real good opportunity for people to check their routine. So there's a whole possible positive change for people to evaluate their routine, whether it's a couple like just Justine and I, or a family of 4 like you guys, is what are we doing on a daily basis that we could improve our well-being and our health, our ability to communicate with each other, giving people our personal space when we need it, being able to request for that personal space when we need it, or mental or emotional space. There's such a great opportunity to kind of reevaluate how we are engaging in our world and how honest we are being about our internal locus of control. Sometimes people reevaluate their lives because someone passes. Well, this is an opportunity to do this in a positive way, because no one, unless someone actually has passed from COVID in your immediate life, you have a really good opportunity to kind of reset. The nation, in this case, in the entire world, is getting an opportunity to have an individual reset button. Hit that reset button right now and say, what is important to me as soon as I wake up in the morning, and how do I keep that succession of importance going so that I'm doing the best that I can for internal locus of control, because we're only as strong as the weakest link. So if I take care of myself during this time and I come out better than what I started the beginning of this quarantine, then the whole nation will be better. And one of the things I said to the kids, because a couple of people were requesting that I talk to the kids a little bit about the fear of this, is I said, we talk about the dojo in the dojo all the time. A lot of what you just said was internal locus of control. For me, it's just self-control with the kids. And I said, if you control yourself, then your parents don't have to control you. Then your parents can control themselves and do the work they need to do. And if your parents are doctors or scientists, or then that means that they're going to help save the world, so to speak, from COVID-19. So if you do your work, then you're not interrupting them from doing their work. So the doctors and scientists of the world can get to their work. So you can actually be directly proportional in helping by not being a distraction. And, and I think that's true for everything. It doesn't really matter. If you're a good citizen, then that's what we're trying to accomplish. And this is a good opportunity to kind of reevaluate that.
Yeah, and like you said, evaluate what is your routine. And for people who say, well, the gym's closed, I can't go to the gym anymore. But we're in a lucky time period where you have access to hundreds of different workout regimens and exercises that have been posted for years that don't require equipment. If you don't have equipment, require minimal equipment if you have minimal equipment. So find one that you like and find yourself a routine, and then find yourself a routine for the day. And then it also doesn't seem so endless because you know what to expect next. Things don't seem as scary because things seem more predictable. There's some kind of movement every day of, I know what I'm doing. I'm resetting myself. I'm creating a new healthy routine that could help me beyond when this quarantine ends. And I could end up, like you said, in a better situation than I was before.
Yeah. Or to even better along that lines is find out where your local gym is and if they're doing online classes and support them.
And support them.
Doesn't matter if it's White Tiger Dojo or some other, fitness group that's in your immediate area. Go find out what they're doing.
Yeah. And
double whammy.
And it's one thing to say support small businesses because we want them to be here at the end of it, but then you have to do it. You have to make sure that you do it. Are there local restaurants? Make sure that you're supporting them, because it'd be a shame if we don't support them. And then at the end of all this, we're like, oh, where all the small businesses go?
By the way, that was
on us.
By the way, that was the same thing for Amazon. When Amazon started sweeping up, basically all small business, and all those mom and pops started to drop, everyone was, well, what happened to them? So, we're all guilty.
But isn't it so much easier to point at Amazon instead of point at ourselves and look in the mirror? Amazon didn't put them out of business. We did.
Yeah. We invested in them. We used their products and services, all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
again, external locus of control. It's Amazon's fault, not mine. Yeah. Internal locus of control. I helped Amazon put that small. Exactly.
The first step in all problems and solutions is to look in the mirror.
Definitely.
Oh man, you have to go to work in a little bit.
Yeah, in a little bit, pretty soon.
All right, so we could find a way to wrap it up. It's rare that we kind of put this internal locus of control upon ourselves. It usually just happens naturally. But the short version is we need to do a better job conversing with each other. And maybe this is a good opportunity for each and every family member to look themselves in the mirror, especially for the mature ones that can look at themselves in the mirror and not make funny faces, to kind of have a real dialogue of when we're talking to keep each other in check about not making exceptions to every little bit of linguistic gymnastics that could be used to undermine the conversation. I think I told you the story of me talking to the kids about exceptions. And I said, if 2 + 2 is 4, anyone who says 5 is not really helping the conversation. And of course, you get that one kid and says, well, right? And I said, are you a theoretical mathematician? They're like, no. I said, have you read the papers about theoretical math and how there is a possible way that 2 + 2 does not always equal 5? They're like, no. I said, so you're just randomly calling out an exception just to undermine a conversation. And we all need to have that gut check, because we're not going to solve any problems going forward if we continue to dialogue in a way that where our intention is to undermine the dialogue rather than move the dialogue along.
Definitely. And then to always ask ourselves, what is the continuum of this debate or this conflict? And am I on an extreme side of one end of this? And if I am, is that warranted? What does the middle look like? And does the middle have a point?
Yeah. And usually it does.
Usually it does.
And on that point, I will let you go to work.
Sounds good.
Hey, great talking to you. Good luck today.
You too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.